DB doubles raised to $6 and people are not happy. And that is linked to global issues, really and truly. Now, the DB doubles issue is in its own little capsule there, and there are quite a few arguments for and against it, and it brings up some interesting topics in Trinidad itself. But really and truly, when you look at it, it's not something in a bubble. These issues are all linked, and we are seeing supply chain problems pop up all over the world, and the effects would be trickling down. That's just the nature of it. It's a chain, so there would be a chain reaction, of course. So you have the doubles being raised, that's on the heels of the bread being raised, and that's on the heels also of Royal Castle announcing they don't have their famous pepper sauce anymore, at least not right now, and it would be some time before they get it back in stock. It's the supply chain problems that are sneaking their way all around the world. And some of it could be traced to just the simple lockdowns. And as we go through some of these articles, you'd see how just some simple decisions in the lockdowns that would have been made from a government level, how it would affect private, and now it could seem like problems within the private sector, but some of those problems were created by some of the initial government lockdowns in the first place. And again, this is just continuing with the whole topic of wondering the cost benefit ratio analysis of the lockdowns versus other ways of mitigating the virus in some of those early days. Because back then, just as now, there were always discussions about various ways of doing things. And I remember since late 2020, the WHO already started announcing that only use lockdowns in the most critical of situations. And the issue that creates, of course, is figuring out what exactly you would consider the most critical of situations. But now I guess it's the time where we could look back in hindsight as we look forward into the future, and we see the issues that are being created with this chain reaction. And I guess now is the time we evaluate some of these measures and see whether it was all worth it. And the thing also is, the reality is, there may be more lockdowns coming, because if societies are not getting accustomed to living with the disease or finding some other way to manage with the virus other than lockdowns, the virus for sure doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, at least not anytime soon. So if you haven't clicked that like button or tap that like button, however you do it, please do that right now and drop a comment, tell me what you think. Do subscribe if you are not yet subscribed, and let's get into the stories. Uproar in DB, doubles increases to $6 at Hassan Ali's shed. Incensed that the price of doubles has increased by $1, although the government had removed VAT on groceries, several customers refused to buy doubles at a stall in DB on Monday. It is ridiculous. I went to Hassan Ali's green shed and they increased the price of doubles and other items by $1. They're charging an extra 50 cents for chana. I am not buying doubles for $6 and I'll buy with chana for $6.50, Niranjan Barban declared as he walked away. Now listen, all of the economic situations and differences and the balance and the chains and all of that, that's great for it. But when it comes to personal individual decisions, each person has to make their individual decision. And that's to go back again, to tack back a bit to the vax issues. That's one of my problems with mandatory or forced coercion style of it. You change the balance of people making their own individual decisions. But I could give Mr. Niranjan Barban some credit for that, because he made his decision. He is not buying the doubles for that price. And if people make such decisions and stick with such decisions, you determine what you believe something is worth, and you're not going to pay more than that for it. I believe some of the issues would be more easily solved. Some of the issues are just way bigger than individual choice at this moment, but still, there's always the element of individual choice. Guardian Media checked the price of doubles in South Trinidad, which varied from $2 to $6, even though the price of oil, chana, and flour has become cheaper with the removal of VAT. This is something that is a bit strange to me, because generally speaking, the people who sell the doubles for $2, it's not like they sell 5 times more doubles than the people who's selling their doubles for $6 now. They generally sell around the same amount. So are they making that much less, or do they have some method to make the doubles so much cheaper? That's interesting, because that's a large price difference. That's a massive price difference. However, while the price at Hassan Ali's Green Shed had increased by $1, other vendors along the Davis Strip, including Hussein's Indian Delicacies and Singh's Shed, remained the same. Krishna's was closed for the day. The owner of Hussein's Indian Delicacies, Sharida Hussain, said any price increase of doubles at this time was unjustified, as the cost of material has been reduced. A sign in front of her booth read, "Doubles still $5. Chana and sauces free." That's advertising. That's competition. That's the free market. And I think a lot of the times, if we allow things to keep running in that manner, we get a lot more solutions than if the council or the MP in charge of that DB region come in and they try to control the prices, and they say, well, you must only charge between so much and so much price and this and that, and then eventually you would notice some friend of theirs is now the chief double supplier for the region. Nah, I prefer let Hassan Ali sell for $6. If their quality is so good that people will buy it for $6, well, great for them. And let whoever is the $2 guy sell for $2. If he is able to make up selling enough to make a profit at that price, great for him. And between those two market forces, I think we're allowed some balance in there. Hossain said while some commodities had increased since the removal of VAT, some products like the cost of oil had been reduced. We used to pay $300 for a keg of oil, but it is now $260, but the chana raised from $260 to $350, she said. They tried to get into contact with the owner of Hassan Ali's, who raised their price by the $1, and the owner gave a short statement. I believe the statement was, "Nobody can bash me for increasing my price." Okay, that's their prerogative as a private business owner. And I think the reasons for raising prices aren't always directly to do with the primary inputs in a product. So it may not necessarily be that they're raising their prices because flour increased or oil increased. It could be they're raising their prices based on other market forces, because there's somebody living inside of Trinidad and Tobago. They have to pay fees, and taxi fares rose. So suppose they have some traveling children, or some of the workers in the store have some traveling children that now have to pay a lot more to go to travel out to school, and they're asking their boss for a pay increase, and in order for their boss to give them a pay increase, the boss decides that, well, I need to get back that profit somehow, and that's why they increase their prices. It's not always just the flour and the oil and the chana, etc., or the direct inputs that would be causing that. But in the case of Royal Castle, it is obviously the direct input, and it is telling about something in the lockdowns, and it explains actually in the small circle, the small little chain in Trinidad here, the small supply chain in Trinidad here, it is telling something even about the global supply chain. It can explain a bit of it. Royal Castle has run out of pepper. Managing director apologizes to customers. Trinidad and Tobago, we have a problem. Royal Castle has run out of its famous pepper sauce, and the problem may continue until the end of October. This was revealed by Royal Castle Limited's managing director Sandy Rupchan during a telephone interview with Guardian Media today. Rupchan said Royal Castle has not been getting the quantity of peppers it requires to be able to make its iconic pepper sauce. But the problem is not only limited to Royal Castle, Rupchan says. Other pepper sauce producers are also not getting peppers, she said. It is a huge problem in the country right now. We are trying our best to get peppers and reaching out to farmers. It is difficult at this point in time, she said. Rupchan said the closures of restaurants as a result of COVID lockdowns, as well as recent flooding, have both exacerbated the problem. And that's one of the most important lines there. The lockdowns, combined with other natural issues that occur year in, year out, has exacerbated some problems. Right now in the US, they're struggling to get some flights off with some of their airlines, and it's threatening to affect more airlines. And one of the reasons is not just the vaccine mandates that is affecting some pilots, but when you combine vaccine mandates and you combine the overworked atmosphere that the whole airline industry has been in for the last year or so, and this extra stress they have been under, it's the combination of those factors. And similarly in this supply chain, here in Trinidad, the pepper supply chain, it's the combination of those factors. It is really bad. This is the managing director speaking again. I think the flooding caused a lot of it also. When the restaurants were locked down, a lot of the farmers did not plant, because when they planted for the first lockdown, nobody bought because the restaurants were still closed, Rupchan said. And that is something that I remember back then when they had the start and stop of the lockdowns repeated, not just in Trinidad, but all over in many different countries. They had that similar issue. So you would have restaurants starting up, then stopping, then starting, then stopping. Remember, farmers can't just open their doors and close their doors and open their doors. If you're planting peppers that have a 3-month cycle, you're planting on rotation. When you plant this set, if that entire produce, you have to sell it for as cheap as possible, or try to freeze it and maybe see if it lasts a little longer, and still it would be cheaper, you're going to lose, because the restaurants that you used to sell to no longer need that much pepper. And then in that case, what are you going to do? You're not going to plant. You're going to down your tools for the while. Wait until things settle again, because you're not going to take another hit like that. And then we have it, the supply chain of the peppers stops. But when we have the restaurants reopening with 2 weeks notice, peppers don't grow in 2 weeks. And even if I was a farmer, I might still be a little apprehensive, because I've heard things reopen and lock down again. If I'm going to output, because to start planting is output of money, and to grow it is output of money, and you're only going to get the profit for that at the end. Farming is some risky business. So if that is the case, I'm not sure I'm going to plant. Although they tell me restaurants are going to be reopened, I'll wait a bit. And when I see things continue, then I might plant. And that's why you may have months inside of reopening and things are still being hampered from moving along. And I remember my video yesterday, I spoke at the end about this story. And some people were talking about, why is this news? What's the relevance of this? This is extremely important. This explains a lot of things. This explains why you are paying so much in the groceries, because this issue is the same issue that has happened across the world. There are places across the world where they may have been planting raw materials for any combination of things. For the chickpeas, for the chana that we use in the doubles, they're planting that en masse. But then when the lockdowns happen, they may have slashed 50% of their staff. That's what many of those places did. And they dropped production by 50%. So some people may still get, but the supply is much lower. And now, when you just have things, you're swinging the doors open again, the supply has shot up through the roof, while the demand is struggling to bring in. And then even beside the demand problem, there's a bottleneck in the transport. So supply has gone up, the demand is low, and then the line between demand and supply, that transportation line, is bottlenecked. Disaster. And when you have all those factors, it's the perfect combination for worldwide inflation. And really and truly, inflation right now is worldwide. But as I keep saying to whoever listens, the thing with some of these disruptions to supply chains is it presents unique opportunities for many people, for new players in some of these markets. Because, for example, in the case of Royal Castle, their managing director is making an open call. If you can supply peppers, contact them. They want some. And they're making that open call. So maybe you're trying to branch into some farming industry. Well, maybe you can try it. It's creating new opportunities for people to get involved that may not have previously been involved. As difficult as it is, these difficult times are some of the most opportune times also. And joining in the conversation back with the doubles also was the CEO of one of the supermarkets, one of the chief importers of many products. Supermarket CEO says double should be $10. And this statement caused quite a few people to be very upset. While some people are outraged that several vendors have increased the price of their doubles to $6, the CEO of Maharaj Westside Supermarket says it should be $10. Now, he was speaking in the context of him being an importer and distributor. And he was noting Maharaj Westside Supermarket is the distributor of cow brand ghee in Trinidad and Tobago, and usually around this time they would have about 20 containers of the product. But because of the supply issues, they are without. He said internationally, suppliers, growers, and manufacturers have slashed staff in some cases by 50%. That's the point I was just making. Another issue also reported globally was the unavailability of shipping containers and cargo ships. It means an order for particular items can take between 3 to 6 months to arrive in TNT. Usually, importers would pay between US $2,000 and US $2,500 for a container from Miami. But Maharaj said it is now a minimum of $12,000. So at the end of the day, when you add up all of that, why are people complaining about $1? Double should be $10. When they have to get up 2 o'clock in the morning, these poor people, and them to make a living, chicken going up. Nobody talks about Kentucky going up, Maharaj said. And I understand his point. He's talking about the difference we treat some of the foreign enterprise with and the disregard we treat some of the smaller businesses with. And the point I was making originally with that being how the free market functions is part of the issue there. Because when you could relate with the owner of this business, you're trying to relate with them to allow them to understand where you really value the product in the free market. But when the owner of a corporation is miles away and they don't really care for your individual business, they're looking at you as part of a statistic, then it's much more difficult to get something done there. Like the uncle from the first article who walked off from the double stand, that single walk off may be able to affect some doubles prices more effectively than someone who walked into KFC and they say, I'm not paying that for KFC, and they walk off. They mightn't care that much. And that's one of the problems. Just to stick in there another issue, that's one of the problems in itself with large corporations and why it could be dangerous for countries, and especially smaller countries like us, to allow some of these large corporations to come in, because what they are capable of doing, because of the amount of resources they have at their disposal, would run contrary to how our little free market may be running, and they would be able to squeeze individual smaller people out of these markets. But the point that Mr. Maharaj is making is that this entire thing, the doubles increasing, is a global issue. I was looking at some stories where off the coast in the United States, there are nearly 500,000 shipping containers just stuck there in ships waiting to be processed because they're having issues with some of the workers, they're having issues at the ports, they're having issues with the truck drivers, and the reality is a lot of the things that we may ship to Trinidad have to ship to the US first and then to Trinidad, and that's creating, even for me, some of my mindful t-shirts that I'm shipping, it's taking a bit longer than it would usually take. Nearly everything has a slower effect in the transportation business. That's the reality. That's why Royal Castle is out of pepper. That's why doubles prices are looking to increase. That's why nearly all prices are on decline. If you pay attention to enough global world news, you'd see the US is having record inflation. The United Kingdom is having record inflation. Inflation is universal at this current time. And it is as the result, pretty directly, of the lockdowns. That's all I have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about these entire issues. Do you think doubles should really be $10? Would you pay $10 for a doubles? And what do you think? You want to plant some peppers? Might have a lot of money in it. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Don't forget to subscribe if you aren't yet subscribed. And I'll see you again in the next video.
Rising with the